Fantastic. Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
You got to bring yourself into the moment.
I have to. It's something that we've started, doing recently. I got away from it. I used to do it when I was working with Mr. Monk Melville over at Sanctuary Studio. I was working with him, and I would take deep breaths before the show, and then I got away from it. And then recently, I'm like, let me start doing it again. Just 2 quick, easy breaths, and then just get right into it. So it is an exciting day today. It is February 8th, and tomorrow, February 9th, I will be 27 years old, my friend.
Congrats.
27 years old. We're having a fantastic weekend thus far. We had Nikki Hands on a podcast yesterday, a brother of mine. We had 3 shots of espresso at 8 p.m. I stood up to about 2 a.m. Last night. We had a blast. But yeah, man, I'm just grateful to be here. I'm grateful that you're here. Turning 27 is monumental for me. Where were you? What were you doing when you were 27?
27, man. I was here. I was working in coffee, actually. I don't know if I was working... Actually, I was working at a roasting company, Electric City Roasting Company.
Yep.
And I think that's like about the time that I was kind of, I don't know, going to school and, I don't know, just living life.
So you weren't in a really like creative realm at that time?
At that time, my wife and I, we did have a creative agency. Dude, we've always had a lot going on, Sarah and I. So at that time we had like a creative agency, and that was like, that was like a pretty solid part-time 3/4 income. And that kind of taught us what it was like to like live on our own and be like, getting by on that sort of like, contracts and dealing with people.
Adversity.
It's hard work.
Adversity, right? You faced a lot of adversity at that time?
We did. I will tell you, like, we've gone through a lot of adversity the last 10 years, but it's all good. It's all part of the growth process.
That's the beauty of life, my friend. That is the beauty of life. So here we are, February 8th, as I said, here for episode 130 of the Middleman Podcast. My guest of today is Shams. Shams, thank you for coming in all the way from Nashville.
130.
That means a lot to me. You have no idea. I'm always so ecstatic when people are willing to travel to Scranton to come and do this show with me, because it's monumental. It's like it's baffling, because I sit here and I'm like, I never thought that this would...
Well, dude, I told you I listened to this podcast episode, Milkman. You know what episode that was?
Yes, Dairy World. Dairy World, Milkman, milk.
And I'm like, I'm working out in the gym, like listening to this, and I'm like, man, this guy like knows how to like have natural conversations. Like I feel like I could have like a really deep conversation with this guy. And I've liked you've had some cool creative, music artists, visual artists on the show. So
thank you, man. I'm open to willing and talking to anyone and everyone who is creating a future for themselves. I tell people from all walks of life are welcome on my show. Even individuals who aren't in the creative realm but have experienced the hardship in their life that not everyone goes through, such as maybe like a kidney failing, and now you're on this list to try to get a new kidney, so on and so forth. We have had a conversation like that with Dylan Marcato. It's probably in my opinion, one of the most impactful episodes that I've ever done, just because of like the life aspect of it. He wasn't promoting anything. He wasn't, trying to sell you anything. He was just telling you what he experienced. I think
that's real shit, dude.
I think the quote of the pod was like 14 days gone or something. Like he was 14 days like in a coma. Dude. Like insane. Absolutely insane.
So like, dude, this is thought I have. I had this thought actually like 2 or 3 years ago. I was like, so I was into cycling, which is like, a competitive thing. And I realized that like all of the people that we look up to in society, stars, celebrities, athletes, like, academia, whatever, these people that are at the very like tip of their function, they tend to be the least balanced people. Like if you know those people, they tend to be the people that actually, when you get to know them, they're like not balanced. Like they're actually not the people you want to hang out with. The people that you want to hang out with are like the people that are just so solid and balanced, and they might not be like professional athlete, because in order to be a professional athlete, you have to make a lot of sacrifices. You're not developing certain areas of your life in order to develop these areas. And so I had this realization. I was like, I want to be balanced. I don't necessarily want to be like the best at anything. Like I just want to be like, I want to be healthy. I want to be like mentally fit, spiritually fit. I want to like be a good friend, be a good father, also have fun, also be creative. I don't know how what were you just talking about?
We were talking about my buddy.
So your guy, like, so podcasts, like anything, media is built around the celebrities. It's built around the people that it's like, oh, look at this guy, he's special.
Correct.
But like, I love the name Middleman, and I'd like to hear what that's about at some point. But, yeah, I like the idea of like being able to talk about real stories. Like, hey, you're on the podcast. Like, yeah, you didn't like set some record or anything, but like your story is still valid and important and can be like helpful. Like, we need to hear it.
It could resonate. It could resonate with anyone and everyone, because although I may not have experienced a kidney failure, others on this planet have. And, maybe prime example, like hearing a story would be a glimmer of hope that there is a chance for you to make it through that. And his story was horrific, man. It really was. Like, he was so close to getting a kidney, and then at last minute, the person who had volunteered backed out. Like, it was demoralizing to him, and then like, things turned around and he was fortunate enough to get a kidney. But yeah, man, that's what it's all about, just hearing people's stories. The middleman, real quick. So what's the middleman about? The way I view my platform is I am the bridge in between the internet and you and I having this conversation right now. Because the reality of the fact is, if my team and I don't take care of what needs to be edited, done, if you and I never had the conversation, scheduled the phone call, this is never happening. No one will ever hear the side of you that is just you speaking as a person, because they, more often than not, they see you as a performer. Okay. Like, think about it. The public, fans, they see you as a performer. You're not going to be buddy with every person that you meet. This platform gives them an opportunity and a little bit of insight to see who you are as just a person speaking. Cool. So that's the way I view my platform. I am in the middle from the rest of the world being able to hear your story and what we've captured in this conversation, man. That's what it's all about. Thank you, man.
Hell yeah.
Thank you. And as a matter of fact, this is episode 130. And if you didn't know, I looked it up this morning. Only 90% of 90% of podcasts do not make it past episode 30.
Wow.
And I remember saying that to myself because I heard it from someone else, and I was like, wow, episode 30, we made it. Episode 30 featuring X-Fam, Drill, Shake, and Peanut. We didn't have video or anything like that, and here we are 100 episodes later. 100 episodes later, still going strong, moving at a rapid pace. Booking upon booking upon booking, bro. Is it a phenomenal time to be doing this? And it's weird. Michael and I talk about it all the time. Like, we meet a lot of people. Like, we really do know a lot of people. And it's amazing to be able to, like, call upon them and, just, hey, maybe you can help me with this,
cool.
And more often than not, because of my personality and the conversation that we have, a lot of people say that it's genuine, and people are willing to do things for me because they know that I would do the same for them. It's all about being genuine here.
Yeah.
Real shit, bro. Real stuff there. So, enough about me. Welcome to the show. Thank you for being here. All the way from Nashville. You had a show last night, and you're here right now. How was it travel? How was everything getting over here?
Yeah, well, we had scheduled this podcast before I got booked for this show. And, it was like last night. I was going to fly out last night. So, it all worked out. Had a great show, great turnout, a lot of energy. Before the show started, you were like, oh, I got to take my deep breaths, and you're like centering yourself.
Correct.
And like, it reminded me, so, had a couple of things go wrong last night. Like, big thing was I had a performer with me. We were going to do this live song, and this is a new single that's dropping in March. Amazing single. I can't wait to share it with you. Dude, it's amazing. And she was going to like perform it live, which is, that happens sometimes in EDM, but like at this level, like, people aren't doing that much, and I'm like really excited about pushing the envelope about what we're doing at this level. So super excited about it. She was super excited about it. I had like the track and a backup track, and when I got up into the booth, it was like the 4th or 5th track that I was gonna play. It didn't load. Backup track didn't load, and she's standing over there on the side with the mic, like cameras are out, ready to like get her coming out, and I'm just like, no. And the connection to this whole centering thing is you have to stay centered, and you like your energy constantly wants to be like going out to all these other things. And like, I mean, I'll be honest, it was hard for me to, like, as I'm feeling her disappointment and not being able to play, the whole team had been, like, working, like, they're early, getting shit set up, like, hours ahead of time so that we could do this thing. And, you know, having that ability to be able to, like, take the breath, center yourself, come back into your energy, that's huge. And this is like a creative thing for you, you know. So I don't know what you had going on today. You're fucking partying last night. It's your friggin' birthday, man. Like, and now you got to like come here and like, you know, do this creative.
But
thing.
this is what I love to do. You got to understand that. So like when I'm here, I'm having the best time of my life. You know, like throughout this week, I had 3 consistent days of anger. I'm not even gonna lie. I was frustrated. There was a decision that was made that not everyone agreed on, and I was just like, why was it made without everyone agreeing on it? And it really teed me off. And, you know, it hindered my thoughts for a couple of days. And I talked to my mom, and she's like, you know, just try to feel better, because if you continue on that way, you're going to get sick. You know, she's like, I don't want you to get sick. And, you know, then we had the podcast yesterday, and haven't thought about it since. You know, going into that discussion with my teammates about that decision again. Now I was like, I need a few days. I just need a few days. I need to get back, you know. And then this morning I woke up and I texted a group chat and I was like, all right, guys, we got to get this, and this done. So let's get it done. Let's lock back in. It is what it is. I'm not going to let it destroy my entire relationship with these people who I work with.
So what do you think it was about doing the podcast? Do you feel like doing the podcast helped you get back into your energy?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like, what do you think? What do you think about like what it was about the podcast that helped you get back?
It's just the, you know, just being in this realm. Okay. This is like, this gives me pleasure. This makes me feel great, you know? So even if it's like the worst conversation ever, like I'm still having the conversation. I'm still in my realm. I'm still where I want to be. And it's something I'm passionate about. I'm sure you could relate when you're behind a booth, you know, like there's just a certain,
Dude,
emotion.
You have to be, and you have to be present.
There's an emotion. Yeah, you have to be present.
Like the cameras are on.
Correct.
Like you gotta be here.
Wow.
Same thing with the booth. Like they're there. Like there's no option.
Yeah. That's what it is. And you know, I've talked about it time and time again on the show. I have a difficult time with being present on it for real, because I'm always on the go. I'm like, okay, we did this. Now what's next? What's this? Like, but when I'm here, I have nothing else to do other than be here. And maybe that's what it is. Maybe you just solved the problem for me on it for real, because I do struggle with being present. I have a awful way of being present. I just can't do it. Like, prime example, episode 100. We did episode 100. It was a phenomenal show. We had people come out. It was a live podcast. We had rotating guests. It was insane. We got the show done. We had an event after, and it was a blast. And people were coming up to me, yo, how do you feel? How do you feel? How do you feel? I feel all right. I feel okay. I feel all right. I feel okay. It never really hit me until like a few days later. I ran into Monk, ironically, and he was like, dude, come here. Let's talk. You know, I just want to let you know you did that. And then like sitting there speaking with him, I actually had the time to, oh, wow, we really did that. Like, we really did achieve what we wanted to do. And at that moment, I was present because I was looking back at what we achieved. So that's my problem, bro, is I have a difficult time of being present. But I think this right here is the most present you will ever see me. Thank you. Thank you for that, bro. Thank you for that. And you know what's funny is our first interaction, when you had reached out to me, it was August 12th. Okay, I looked at the emails. Okay. It was August 12th. You had reached out to me telling me that because I think you learned about the Middleman Podcast through Atmosphere, correct?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, through Atmosphere. And August 12th, you had reached out. There's a photo in my phone, August 11th, which is me in a chair that's over there, sitting in this corner, and I'm just there like thinking. And I remember I was like, I was just thinking like, what are we gonna do next? Like, how are we gonna make this better? And it was basically me laying out what we wanted to do here with the set, with the cameras, and I thought that was really impactful, kind of odd. I was like, wow. At that time, you hit me up the day before, and I had told you, oh, we're not recording right now. We're looking on getting more cameras.
I remember you said
stuff like that. The next day you hit me up the day before. I was sitting there thinking about it, like legitimately thinking about it. I'm like, timing is weird, bro. Timing is really weird. And for some reason, you have good timing lately. Dude. You have phenomenal timing.
Interesting.
Tell me more about this show. Tell me more about this event. It was called Dance Fest.
Yeah. So last night, there's a music festival out in Kansas City called Dance Festopia, and it's like one of the bigger like Midwest, like Eastern side of the country festivals, and they have like this. They call it a tour, but it's basically like different cities around the country. They host this event, and you have to get booked for the event. And last night they had like little tickets that everybody in the audience had, and you vote for who your favorite producer DJ was.
Cool.
And yeah, so I don't know. We'll see. Like, maybe I'll end up playing Dance Festopia later this year. This is like first week of September, I think.
How did you get that position? How did they offer you that position for the show last night?
So I definitely reached out, or I submitted an application. I don't know how many applicants there were. I don't know what the criteria was, to be honest. So,
but you've attended this festival and you wanted to
never
be part
attended
of it?
the festival. No.
Okay, so it just kind of popped up along your board.
Yeah,
fitting for you though, right?
Yeah, it was great. It was great, and it was like local. It's at a venue that we're pretty familiar with. They're in Nashville, called The Office. And we've been, it's been good.
It looked like you had a good time. I've seen some clips on your story. The events look like you're always having a blast. You're definitely in your own realm when you're up there.
Dude, it's like what you said. It's like when you're doing your thing, like you are in your energy, like in the place that you're supposed to be. I definitely feel that when I'm performing. It's honestly, so I was like really involved in the worship music scene for a while, like leading worship in churches, like leading worship, playing drums, guitar, bass, whatever. And like that had always been like a big part of my life. And I realized like 6 months ago, like I want to be a worship leader up there and we'll start talking about like Rumi and mysticism a little bit here.
Yes.
But I kind of view my role up there as trying to usher people into presence, to be present, to like tap into that energy and to like allow themselves to like, open up to what's going on. Like there's energy in this room and I want to like give you permission and do whatever I can to like make you feel comfortable to be crazy, be ecstatic, like let yourself go,
How do you captivate the crowd?
Dude, you know what? The real answer, and this is for everybody, whether you're podcasting or an artist or whatever, figuring out how to be yourself. Like that is the most magnetic thing, is the more authentically you are living yourself, dude, people feel that because they want to live themselves. And even if like yourself is different from them, like it like awakens that like self-confidence, that self like realization inside of other people. I really believe that that's the spiritual path. Actually, it's we kind of come through life and we take on all of this baggage, all of this karma, all of these samskaras, which are like these sort of impressions on our mind, on our consciousness. And the spiritual path is about like figuring out what those things are and letting go of them so that you can reveal your true identity. And as you're revealing your true identity, like opportunities are opening up to you. You're opening up more to love. You're more tapped into consciousness, to God. And, that is ultimately what's attractive. So for me, actually yesterday, like I posted on Instagram a picture. I was at my meditation table and I'm like hanging out with people to remind me, so I have a meditation table. It's called a puja table.
Okay.
And you could put objects on there or pictures of people. And the pictures are there to remind you, like to kind of like remind you of who those people are. Actually, I brought this for you as a gift. This is like a Sufi.
Okay.
Kind of in Sufi garb, and he's playing I'm
sorry. Elaborate on the term Sufi. I'm unfamiliar.
So Sufism is a form of it's like mystic Islam.
Okay.
Some of the more like prominent Sufis were kind of like in the 1200, 1300 AD time frame. So Rumi, who is a huge influence of me, soul brother. I swear I'm soul bonded with this guy. He was in like 1200, 1250 AD. And so this is a Sufi, and he's playing a ney, which is like a Turkish flute. Sometimes like when I'm, it kind of reminds me of like Aladdin, sort of like if you think about like a flute on Aladdin. So this is for you.
Thank you very much.
And so I'm giving that to you because like you could put it somewhere. And the reason you put these objects or these pictures of people on this table or at your desk or next to your nightstand is so that like when you look at it, your senses are bringing that in, and your mind is like getting impressions of that. And so like, dude, if I had a picture of you next to my desk, whatever energy I've gotten from you, like my memory of you, like your friendliness, your authenticity, your openness, your genuine curiosity about people, I'm going to be getting that energy from you, even though you're not there. Like that memory impression is hitting me. And so I have pictures of like a couple of different people. Like one big influencer for me is Ram Dass, who passed away maybe a decade ago. And I have pictures of him because I want to remember his happiness and his grace and his positivity and his just openness and authenticity. And when I see a picture of him, I'm like reminded of that. So anyways, just tying this back to yesterday. So that was one of the things that I did ahead of the show is I meditated and spent time with these people so that I could like build up that energy, the energy that I wanted to be sharing, bringing onto the stage with me. So.
No, I get that, man. I get that entirely. Trying to make sure that you're good. The authenticity, right? That's what we were talking about. Authenticity, to be authentic. That's something that a lot of people compliment us on here is they're like, I can see the authenticity in the interviews that you guys do, how real it is, how much fun you have, and that's one of the things that we really hone in on. It's not even like I have to try. It's just me being me. I'm not doing anything special. I don't think I'm anything special. But then, as you get through life, you start to realize that, I do have a certain skill that some people don't have, and it's very interesting. And, I have those introspective talks to myself. And when I realize it, I'm like, wow, like that's kind of cool. That's actually really insane, because to me, at one point, I looked at this as no special talent, as nothing extraordinary. The ability to talk to people to me wasn't something to be like proud about. Like,
did you ever have like imposter syndrome or like a
no I don't think I've ever had imposter syndrome within this podcast. No, I'm not really like imposter syndrome maybe at work, with certain jobs, like, damn, like, am I really this guy? Like, am I really,
you feel more real here than at work.
Yeah. It's interesting. Because, time and time again, like I've tested my ideology on certain things, and, prime example is being able to call upon so many people, and have them help me out is like, I'm able to do that. And it didn't feel like I was like an imposter of it. It's like, no, we've done this. Like, we've built this. This is what we've worked for. This is why we've been working for it. So it's real. It's very real. And back to the photos and images that you were speaking about. There's an image of my mother on my refrigerator right there, in the center. And it's her really, really young. She's like 19. And I love looking at that photo, man, because it's like she has a paint mark on her face. She was, doing all this other stuff. And I'm like, wow, like, yeah, that's my mom, like she's always worked hard. She used to have a lot of fun as a, young person and stuff like that. And photos are extremely impactful when you look at certain things. I have a whiteboard over there along the hallway that says on the top of it says, what's next? What's next? And it's bullet points. And every year I'll like erase some off, and then I'll put some new ones on. Some of them stay on there constantly, like don't go ghost is always on there. Just promote is always on there, but it's all about just being able to sit there and really, when you write it and you achieve it and you see it again, it's monumental.
Yeah.
It's really, really cool. So it really is a blast doing this. May I ask you where the name Shams originated from?
So, yeah. So first of all, Rumi, like I told you,
yes.
he's really like the most well-known between the two, Rumi and Shams. I mean, Rumi is a prolific author. I mean, he just wrote a ton of poetry. This is just a selection of it.
What's the title of that?
This is called The Essential Rumi.
Okay.
I should have, if we're on again, like sometime in the future, I'll find some quotes or something to give you. Maybe I'll underline some stuff before I leave. So he's a poet. He was best friends with this guy named Shams. And so
I'm getting it. Continue.
Yeah,
I think I'm getting it.
and so I remember the first time I opened up this book, I was actually on an airplane, and I was like maybe 10 minutes in, and I just started like bawling. Like, and I don't know what it is, because like it's just like this very intimate thing. I've never been a poetry guy.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've never like been able to like read poetry and be like,
beautiful.
oh, this is like really, I'm connecting to this. And so I don't know what it was about him, but it was almost like I could just like feel his like consciousness or something. And so anyways, Shams was one of his best friends. They spent a ton of time together. And to Rumi, in that Arabic culture, guys hold hands. Like there's like platonic relationships are like very strong over there, especially back then. And so they were like platonic lovers, like just very close, the best of best friends. And Rumi would often talk about Shams as if Shams was like the just a representation of the divine presence. And this is actually, if you ask me, like, what is mysticism?
Of the divine presence.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you were to ask me, like, what is a mystic?
Mm-hmm.
Because I call myself a mystic. What is a mystic? A mystic is somebody who chooses to and practices to see and participate in the divine energy that already exists around us at all times. And so, I fail at that from time to time. Like, it's hard when you go to work,
Mm-hmm.
But we are just living in this like non-dual world where like spirit and consciousness is just flowing around us. Creativity is just flowing around us. And, we talk about presence and like being aware and in the moment. Like that's like, to be in the moment is to be participating in that divine energy at all times. And so Rumi would kind of talk about Shams as the representation of that. Well, at some point, 10 years, 15 years into their relationship, something happened to Shams. It's speculated that he was murdered. He just kind of fell off the face of the planet. And Rumi spent years trying to find him. Never could. And after a couple years of searching for him, he kind of writes about how he realized, I don't need Shams anymore, because Shams represents that divine energy, and that divine energy is already here, and I can enjoy that divine energy at all times. And so so Shams is my tag is with Shams, because like in some senses I want to be with that Shams. I don't claim I'm not that Shams, but I do go by Shams now. I had this realization about 3 or 4 months ago. When I started the project, Shams was just a brand. Middleman Podcast, like whatever brand you might want to start, And I started realizing, I was sitting down meditating one day, and I was like, man, I feel way more closely aligned to this brand to Shams than to Aaron, which is my legal name.
Yes.
And, I'm 36 years old. Like I've experienced some life. Like I've been through some life, and so it's, for me, I have a longer history, right? Like I'm looking back at this and I'm like, that's not necessarily who I want to be aligning to anymore. Like I'm obviously I'm taking all that stuff with me, but like I want to be less that guy and more this guy. And I feel more closely aligned to this guy, and so I had this realization a couple of months ago. I was like, I think that I want to be Shams, to be called Shams, and there's a good tradition of people that do that. You and I are friends with Joy.
Yes, and actually, now that you bring her up, Mystic Joy. It makes sense.
Heck yeah.
Full circle.
And we have a track together.
Yes, I do. Yep.
And so she was like a really great forerunner for me. Like I actually talked to her about it. I was like, what was that like because I've always known her as Joy.
Yes.
I didn't even know her name was not Joy. Her legal name was not Joy for a while. And so she was very encouraging. And then also like Richard Alpert became Ram Dass. There's a long, Jacob became Israel, in the Bible. There's a long history of this. And it's also been an interesting tool for me because our identities are so closely like entwined with our name. Even though our names kind of like don't mean anything, like Kevin, like you deep down inside, you are Kevin.
Correct.
And so for you to change your name, if you ever were to experience that, it is weird. It's like, it's disruptive. And I kind of was like, I wanted that disruption, that discomfort of like who am I? Right. Like, and so it's kind of opened up this new, like, fundamental shift in like how I identify, basically.
When did you start to like embark on this spiritual journey? Do you know, was there a turning point in your life where you had mentioned that you wanted to kind of disconnect a little bit from Aaron and connect more to Shams? Was there a turning point in your life? Was there a monumental moment that really was like, I'm ready? Or did you like, was there anything like that?
That's a really interesting question. It's not something that I have like talked or thought much about. You know, the truth is, like, I went to Bible school. Like I have like an undergraduate degree in like Bible studies or something.
Wow.
That was like the first college that I went to. And so I think spirituality was like always a big part of my life. And I told you I led worship, and I'll tell you, like, those were some of the most profound, you know, there's a lot of times that I felt really uninspired by religion, but participating in those worship experiences is really one of the primary reasons why I stayed involved, because I was like, there is something real here. I don't know what it is, but there's something real here.
It's the energy.
It is the energy. It's the devotion. And this is like, you know, another conversation. We'll relate this to Bhakti yoga and how that relates into the Eastern spirituality. But, so I was kind of involved in that for a while, like in my early 20s. And I think what happened was my wife and I had some kids, and like real life sets in. And like, you know, in my prior life, like I was in the military and I got my MBA and I started a business and I was doing all of these things. And it almost feels, you know, I told my wife this a lot of times. I was like, it feels like we're in the desert. Like,
okay.
You know, if you're familiar with like Judaism, you know, Christianity, Israel gets like exiled into the desert for like 40 years. And it's just like, hey, it's what it was. You're in the desert. You have to accept that you're in the desert. You have to trust God, that like God's going to bring you back around at some point. And like, you know, there's this period of time where it's like, man, it's not that I don't want to be spiritual. It's just, I feel like it's just not where I'm at right now. And there's probably a lot of people that are in that boat right now where they feel like deep inside, like, I know I'm a spiritual person. I know I'm going to get around to it at some point. It's just like, now is not the time.
I feel like that's where I'm at.
Yeah.
On it for real. Yeah. Like, I have an appreciation for spirituality. You know, I definitely believe in a higher power. I respect the heck out of the universe as well. But I haven't sat down and really, you know, acknowledged it as much as I should. This is going to sound terrible, but I feel as if it's going to take something drastic to happen for me to want to reach that point of, let me try to find something to center me, to get me back to center, you know. And you think about people, and when they're close to death, how they pray to God or to whatever higher power they believe in, and they may have not done that their entire life, you know. And that's what it is. So I think I can sit here and say that there is a spiritual side of me that would love, that has been there when I grew up. My mom always had a rosary around in every bedroom. Had a rosary around it, you know, just something to make you feel safe, you know. Even in the car, on the mirror, you know, it was there. So it's always been around, but I've never really acknowledged it as most people do, you know, as the people who really understand the effects of the spiritual side of yourself, you know, because there is benefits to that. You know, if you are disconnected with spirituality, you know, like, who knows how your life will turn out and play out, you know? Yeah. Will you be bitter?
One thing that I want to say, this is maybe a realization I had in the last like several months, is there's different spiritual paths, obviously. And I'm just going to relate in Eastern spirituality, there's the path of jnana yoga. So yoga means practice. Like, what is the practice that you're using, right? What's the path that you're using? So there's jnana yoga, which is the practice of using your mind to, attain enlightenment or to follow the spiritual path. So that's like theology, understanding, thinking, philosophy. There's bhakti yoga, which is the practice of devotion. And so, if you go to a Christian church service or really any sort of service that's using music or visuals or tactile things or anything like that, that's like devotional, right? So it's like, and then the third, which is really the most important one, is karma yoga. And karma simply means like actions. It's like all these actions that are happening. And karma yoga is really like the most well-traveled path to enlightenment. And for some reason, like what you just said is like, well, I don't feel super spiritual. Maybe I don't feel like, I feel like there may be there may be a point where I want to get to like praying or, doing the rosary or meditating, whatever. But the reality is karma yoga is you being being responsible and attentive to the things that you are supposed to be doing in life right now. And so if you're a father who works a job and, has a friendship and a house and like your job is to be the best goddamn father you can be. Take care of your house, do a great job, in your job, your profession, your career, whatever, school, whatever. Like that is your path. And that is like priority number one. If you're not doing that, that's the thing is like, if you're not doing that, then practicing bhakti yoga, jnana yoga, like reading a whole bunch of spiritual texts isn't going to get you very far. And also, you don't even need that stuff. Just by being the best version of yourself in those situations, by following the karma yoga path, you are stepping towards enlightenment. You are kind of like working towards self-realization.
I love this conversation. I'm enjoying this conversation a lot because, we haven't even talked about the music yet, and I was going to like do that first, then talk about spirituality towards the back end, but let's just keep going with it because I enjoy
Dude, it's hard to not talk about spirituality.
There is something that I spoke to you off camera that I've come across last night, and it's info@withshams, okay, .com. It's like you're sending out emails. You're sending out emails to, is that like an email chain?
I have an email list.
And it's like a blog, essentially. How would you describe that? What are you trying to achieve there? Describe it to the people who don't even know what it is, because I read passage 21 and I forwarded it to a friend this morning who's having a terrible day. And he was like, thank you for that, man. I really needed that. And I'm like, I got you.
That's cool.
No problem. So elaborate to the people what it is, what are you trying to achieve there, and what made you want to get it started?
Yeah. Well, I'd love to have everybody, anybody that's interested, sign up. I have a sign up link on my website, withshams.com. It's an email list, but I try to be really careful about how often I send these emails and what I'm sending. So I always want there to be something of value. Like, I don't want to be just like sending something out to be like creating some marketing material or like, people get tired of that kind of stuff. So, I like to use it to share thoughts that I have about like what I'm going through or like what I think might be relevant. Like I remember we were going through the Christmas season. I was like, I want to share something about the Christmas season. Christian, Muslim, atheist, Buddhist, most people practice some form of Christianity and even of Christmas. And even if you don't, like Christmas is, so I would like, let's talk about that. All right. One of the things you had brought up is I had talked about
acceleration versus speed.
Yeah.
Insane.
Yeah.
Well put together. Insane. Wow.
Thank you.
You guys need to read this. I mean, I have it. If you need it, I got you. I'll send it to you because it's really impactful. And I was like, wow, like, dude, my mind, like, you ever just hear like the glass break in your head as you're like reading something? Yeah, the glass broke in my head. I was like, oh shit. I'm like, he is making complete sense, and I love that. I love a different perspective. A different perspective of, because I would have never have came to the conclusion that you came to. I would have not even asked a question because I don't think I would have ever realized the difference between the two, which is speed and acceleration.
Dude, we put so much pressure and stress on ourselves to perform, even if that performance is just like being happy. You know, there's a lot of people right now that are like not happy and depressed, and they're depressed about being depressed, and they're unhappy about being unhappy. And so this is self-imposed pressure. And one of the things I was trying to communicate, I think at that time I was maybe going through a multi-week period of like, I don't feel like I'm like making that much progress. And then I realized I was like, actually, I'm like cruising along. The thing is like when you're going 70 on the highway, it feels the same as when you're going 40 on a, you know, on the highway or on a country road. And, you know, the reality is we don't perceive speed. We perceive acceleration. And that acceleration, it's this sensory thing that we experience that's actually like, it's exhilarating. Like
Correct.
if you've been in like one of those Teslas, it's like, you know? And when we feel that spiritually, relationally, you get into a new relationship, in that first like 2-3 weeks, it's like, this is like awesome. It's exhilarating. It's almost like we get addicted to that. And then as soon as we get up to cruising speed, it's like, we're like, wait, something's wrong. I'm not feeling that acceleration anymore. But like, dude, like you shouldn't go much faster than 80 miles an hour. Like maybe 85, like there's a limit, right? Like, and so don't like hold and allow yourself to like get on the highway for a little bit, make some progress. Just because you're not feeling that acceleration doesn't mean that you're moving towards the goal any slower or faster, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, just because you're not feeling that acceleration, you know, doesn't mean that it's just a steady progressional growth, you know. And I think about the way you put it with like a relationship, like acceleration, it's all brand new, it feels great.
Yeah.
Then you guys are dating for so long, right? And it just starts to get like a little bit routine, and now you start to question whether or not something is wrong or if something's different. And it's like, no, this is just your cruising speed. You guys are still moving. You're still moving forward. You just don't feel like you're moving as fast. And the thing that really caught my attention was the sensation of an acceleration. Never even thought about that. Like, oh no, you're definitely right. You know, when you start to launch something and you're moving at a really fast pace, you're really ecstatic about it. Then maybe 3 months in, you're like, damn, like I feel like I haven't made any progress. And it's just because you don't feel that same rush that you did when you first started, because it's like now you've created a little bit of a cruise control for you. Of that keeps you moving forward. So I really enjoyed that. And then towards the back end of it, I came across a term. Hopefully I'm saying it right. Satsang.
Oh, satsang, yeah.
Satsang. And that was like, I thought that was really neat. I thought that was really neat. And right here you have sat is, you know, truth, and then sung is fellowship. So, and then you went on to say, we are all in our own individual journey towards the truth. You know, you tell people that, and even if they don't know it, it's really there, you know. So
yeah. So actually, sat is truth. Sang comes from sangha, which is it's used for community, but what it means is like a meeting, a confluence of the ways. Like you think about like some rivers coming together or some like roads coming together. And I just think that that's really cool. So satsang is a coming together of those paths towards truth, because your path towards self-realization, towards like getting rid of your baggage and becoming yourself and finding God, is different than my path.
Correct.
But we can still get together and like, it's still the same truth that we're going after. Like we can like be in a community together and like help each other out, hold each other up.
It's all about just, we're all looking for the same thing, which is just what is it? Fulfillment in life, you know. But what is your version of fulfillment in life? Because everyone has a different take on it, you know. So really interesting, man. I do like those articles. How often do you do them? Or excuse me, I should say blog. How often do you do them? Is it just inspirational, like whenever you feel like it's there, you want to send them out?
I try to do it every 2 weeks, but typically it ends up being like every 3 or 4 weeks. And I do try to give some updates on the music project, and like if I have shows coming up or, you know, new merch coming out or stuff like that. But man, music is so saturated. I mean, you kind of in the music scene too. Like there's so many music artists, and like, I don't want to just be like another DJ who's like promoting his shit, you know, like my thought is like, if I'm doing this, I need to be providing some value that is like people are actually going to connect with,
Yeah.
right? And so like, I'm not gonna just send out an email just to like,
How has
try to
that been
get-
working for you? Would you say it's been working well? Have you been able to connect with your audience, with your fans?
Yeah, man. I definitely I get emails back, which is nice. And honestly, even if I don't, for me, it's like so fun putting together those thoughts. Like written communication is like a pretty cool, unique. I like writing, so yeah, it's fun.
Wonderful, man. Let's tap into tea time here real quick.
Ooh.
Not brought to you by, but inspired by Arizona iced tea. I actually ran into the gas station today and I found a new flavor of Arizona iced tea here. It's Arizona Frost Chillsicle. So cheers to tea time. Not brought to you by, but inspired by Arizona iced tea. Here we go. ASMR for the people.
Get the mouth sounds.
Wow, that's the first one. Hold on. Oh, yeah. Yeah, Arizona, what'd you do here? What'd you do here? This is a good one. Let's talk about it. I am a big fan. I am a big fan here. Tea time, not brought to you by, but inspired by. Shams, I'm going to tell you the same thing that I tell everyone. Michael has put a question in this pot since we started. It's been weeks since we've done this, and it hasn't been picked not once. And we'll see if today's his day, because it's insane that it hasn't been picked. So go ahead and pick a question out the teapot, pass me the paper, and we'll go from there.
All right.
Let's see, Michael. Let's see. I'm praying for you, brother. Yeah, it's just folded up. It's one paper.
It's one paper.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, here we go. Here we go.
And this is like a question or...
This is a question. Yes, just a question. Random questions. I put a handful of them this morning. Sorry, Michael. Today is not your day. Once again, there is a question in here that we didn't pull out, but I'm still going to ask you it because I think it's relative to the conversation that we're having.
Okay.
But the question of the day is, it's an interesting one. It says, how do you handle anger? How do you handle anger?
That sounds particularly relevant considering what you were telling me about this week.
Yes. Yeah. How do you handle anger? I could go first or you go first. Doesn't matter.
You go first.
Okay. How do I handle anger? There's different forms of anger for me. How mad am I? What am I mad at? More often than not, if I'm dealing with anger, I do it's forceful. It's disgusting. I know, but I will fuck. I'll hit the wall. I'll be like, fuck. I'll punch the wall. But not to the point of where it's putting a hole in it. But I'll be really angry. That's the way I kind of handle my anger. If I'm in a private setting, if I'm in a public setting and I need to handle my anger, I will just okay, cool. Yep. That's really I'll kind of just shut down a little bit because I don't want to project that anger towards the people that I'm working with. So I'll just shut down and I'll be very silent and I'll just listen and keep listening and keep listening. So that's how I handle anger in a public setting. In a private setting, I will just constantly say fuck and just be like, fuck, damn it. All right, we're good. Come on, let it out. And then I just try to move on with it, I don't really talk to people. Well, if I talk to people while I'm angry and they're trying to console me as to what I'm angry about, I find myself getting more angry talking to them about what made me angry. So I just kind of I don't want to talk about it. Let's just, let me handle this by myself. But more often than not, I'm just very, it's like this, bro. It's I wish I could do something about it, but I'm not going to hurt myself, so... That's how I handle anger on a for real.
So I'm going to translate that through the model of chakra energy that I understand, and then I'll relate it to how I personally experience anger. So chakra energy, it's oftentimes called serpent energy or kundalini energy, and the way that I describe it, it's almost like, is it Pavlov's hierarchy of needs? Is it, the hierarchy of needs, whatever it is. You teach you that shit in middle school. And, at the bottom is shelter, and then it's food or whatever. Mm-hmm. The chakra energies are kind of like that. So the base chakral energy is sort of primal energy. It's the root energy. It's life-sustaining energy. And oftentimes that's the chakral energy where a lot of anger is going to take place. And then you go up and there's, second level is maybe there's some sexual energy, and you move up to third and there's some like emotional love energy, and you move up and there's like more self-actualization, individual realization stuff. And as you go up, there's kind of, you call them higher levels of chakral energy. But the reality is, in order to be at this level, you need all of these levels to be energized. And they're oftentimes considered wheels. They're like chakral wheels. And they spin with energy. And as they're spinning up, this is obviously just like a mental model. Yeah. They spin with energy. And in order, this one spins. And once this one gets spun up, then the next one can spin up. Okay. And so Kundalini yoga is the practice of using that energy, learning how to generate that energy and move it up into higher levels of awareness. And we talk about how yoga is a path towards enlightenment. Well, that's one of those paths towards enlightenment. Now, what will happen is oftentimes, everybody, some chakra tends to be either over-energized or under-energized. And so, you might have a friend, like I'm thinking of a friend that sometimes maybe that third chakra, the emotional human connection chakra, is overly energized. And so that can come out in ways of maybe, that could come out as being like overly emotionally needy or emotionally,
emotionally driven,
driven. But if it's overspinning, it could be like emotional, they tend towards like emotional harm almost, where it's almost like they're overly sensitive or something like that. And by the way, these can have connections to other like physical properties as well. So, I'm not as versed in like the physical connections, but some of these like have to do with like indigestion, or like if you get headaches, or if you have different things.
Yes, I had a migraine, extreme migraine.
I wouldn't be surprised if there was like some connection there. And so, the other thing to understand is that this chakral energy, we have the ability at any time to send that chakral energy out and that can be used in good ways or bad ways. So like
dissipated into the universe.
Exactly. So now if I'm, with a loved one and I have like plenty of third chakral energy and I'm really connecting with them, I can like let that energy out, and I'm giving my energy to that person. But I'm sure this is kind of obvious to everybody once I say this, but as you're giving energy to others, that limits the amount of energy that's going up. It's energy that's going out instead of up. And if your goal is enlightenment, then you need to be maximizing the amount of energy that's going up, if that's the path that you're focused on. So, coming back to anger, one of the ways that what I am interpreting that as is you're getting this buildup of root chakra energy that's just like going crazy, and it has to come out. And so you hit something, you fucking swear. And I'll talk about how I experienced it in a minute, but I've experienced that, and that's because that energy has got to come out. Now, what a yogi master will tell you is like what you should do. That it's energy. It's pranic energy, and you're experiencing it as negativity because it's too much down here.
Yes.
But like next time you're angry, it's going to be hard to do this emotionally, but view that as it's neutral energy. You can take that energy and fucking move it up if you choose to. Move it up into higher levels, and so anyways.
Essentially let it fuel you.
Let it fuel you. Yeah. And it's the same thing, like we could talk, that's root chakra. Second chakra is like the sexual stuff. We live in a highly sexualized society. People it's experiencing their sexuality, and like on a daily, weekly basis, they're just like giving away all of their sexual energy. You can allow that to continue your motivation and keep that energy inside of you that like kind of keep you driven. At every level, it's like that. So the way that I experience energy in that context is I don't get a buildup of anger. when something happens to me, I tend to have like a energy depletion, and I get into the situation where all of that chakra energy has sort of like retreated, and then it becomes a problem of, okay, how do I get any of that? I need to get any of my pranic energy back. So yours, I would say, I'm interpreting yours as sort of like an over-energizing of that chakra level, and mine ends up coming out as like a depletion of it.
It's interesting the way you put it there, because as I mentioned, there are times where I'll just shut down. I'll just stop speaking. And that's just me, like, I guess, being depleted of wanting to say my piece at that point, because I know it's not going to come out the right way. I think about, I'm one of those individuals that I wear my heart on my sleeve. I am emotionally driven. My entire life, it's been extremely easy for people to tell how I'm feeling. It's not hard. I don't make it hard. It's who I am. You know how I feel based off how I'm moving around. And it's interesting. It really is, because that's just how I've been my entire life. So if I'm mad, you'll see that I'm mad. If I'm sad, you'll see I'm sad.
Yeah.
If I'm happy, you'll see I'm happy. So I wanted to talk to you. I said there's another question in there that I wrote in, and the question is, what color would you describe yourself as a mood and or feeling? And I think it's really relative to this conversation that you and I are having. And at first thought, when I read that, I thought blue, just because blue. Let's go with blue. And then I was like, wait, but why blue? Why could I do blue? And then I was like, you know what? Actually, let me go with the color orange. Let me go with the color orange. And the reason I say orange is because orange is in between of like being red, which could be really fiery hot.
Yeah.
And then on the other side of orange is yellow.
Okay.
Right. And to me, yellow is pleasant, so orange is like kind of well balanced, like kind of in between, where you're in a happy medium of like, I can either be a fireball and I can be red as hell, or I can be yellow and I can be pleasant, and that's, to me, orange is a feeling, a color that if you were to look at me, people sometimes say I can see an aura, I can see a color coming off of you. I would like to imagine or think and say that orange is the color that me, as just looking in a mirror, that's what I would represent. It's interesting. I thought about this morning.
Yeah, that's like a really kind of a cool subjective way of like getting into some deep shit. I like that. I'm gonna bring that up at the. I've got a couple of friends that's like it's like anytime we're hanging out, it's like, all right, we're gonna like, it's like, we're all sitting around and it's like, everybody's gonna say like one positive thing about the person to their right. It's like, oh, okay,
okay.
Like I'm just like, that's the drinking games that we're playing, I guess. So this will be like, all right, what color would you describe yourself?
Yeah,
I like that.
It's an interesting question. What do you have a color that you have in mind? Maybe,
dude, I would say, obviously I haven't thought too hard about this, but I would say purple.
Purple, okay.
Yeah, like kind of like this purple up here, when it's 1917 movie poster. So purple is, so first of all, it's kind of like this really like mystical kind of like night, like enigmatic color. It's like, it's not blue, it's not red, it's sort of like it's a weird color, right? Like,
yeah.
And
no offense to purple.
No offense to purple.
Right.
You're kind of weird. Like you don't necessarily fit inside of like, and I also, if you think about like masculine or feminine, like, most guys wouldn't say like, oh, purple's my favorite color. Maybe that's more, but is it even a feminine color? Like not really. It's sort of like in the middle,
Agreed.
And,
I think same thing with orange.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like, yeah, I would have to think about that. I love coming up with like, I love using allegories like that to just like come up with all these constructs of, that'd be a fun writing exercise or something.
Here, cheers to tea time. Not brought to you by, but inspired by Arizona Iced Tea. We're going to move on with this conversation.
It's pretty good.
This one smacks. Like, I don't know how to describe it. Kind of cotton candy-ish, but not too sweet to the point where it's like, you know what I mean? But to continue on with the conversation, you had often talked about the books. You know, you have your book right there, and there were 3 books that I picked out from an Instagram post that you had posted, and they were just the ones that stood out to me. Maybe you could elaborate on these books, why you are so drawn to them.
Sure.
The first one is The Big Red Book. The Big Red Book. The second is A New Earth, Awakening to Your Life Purpose. And then the third one that really intrigued me because of the title was The Courage to Be Disliked. The Courage to Be Disliked. Out of those 3, which ones?
Sure. Well, first of all, just to the audience, I do have a couple of book lists on my website withshams.com. And I like to have those up there because I do read a lot, and I've read a lot my whole life, and that's a big commitment. Like, most people are probably not going to have the time or interest to read as much as I read, and that's totally fine. But I think it's cool, like, for the people that do read a lot, like, to share, like, you know, I might read 30 or 40 books in a year, but only like 7 of them like really smacked. And so for you, like, you want to know what those 7 are. Like, I don't need to read those other 30, right? So like, that's why I kind of have that list, is like, I have people that will hit me up like on DM or whatever, like, hey, here's what I'm going through. Do you have any recommendations? Or like, you know, I want to get back into reading. And so I have a couple of book lists now where it's like, hey, these are like the perennial books that it's like, you have got to read these. Like, if you don't read anything else, so check that out. I've got links, and I also write like some reflections on the books as well. Big Red Book is a bigger version of this.
Okay.
What was the second one?
A New
Earth is an Eckhart Tolle book. Eckhart Tolle is pretty great. A lot of people have heard of his book, The Power of Now, which was actually like, I read it and I was like, oh, this is like heavy. Like, this would be hard to read if I wasn't like a pretty regular reader. A New Earth is basically the power of now, my opinion, is basically the power of now, but it's way more readable. And it goes over a lot of the same themes. One of the things that I picked up from Eckhart Tolle that I thought that I really connected with, these are all just mental models, is this concept of the pain body, and how, you know, when you get angry, your pain body awakens inside of you. And it's almost like this separate being that is not you, that is sort of like taken over your consciousness in your body. And the thing about the pain body is it feeds off of pain. And so it will literally try to cause you more pain by like causing you stress, like making you judge yourself, and then it will also try to resonate pain in other people. And so like I see this with my kids, like their pain body awakens, and like they want to draw you into it and awaken your pain, and your pain might come out as like anger or frustration or And that was like a huge thing. My wife and I talk about this all the time, is like being able to be aware of like, okay, my pain body's activated. I need to not give it space. Or like, you know, if you're with a friend or a partner, same thing is like, okay, I'm not talking to Kevin. I'm talking to Kevin's pain body. And so I'm not going to like, you know, really good concept. He talks about it, you know, explains it a bit more. The Courage to Be Disliked, I won't talk too much about it, but basically, you know, that was a pretty big book for me, and I'm still kind of processing it. I read it last summer. Should read it again. You know, our world is very saturated with Freudian psychology. So let me just explain. There's just a lot of talk right now about like trauma and trauma response, and like, you know, because I grew up a certain way, therefore this is why I have these problems or these addictions or whatever. And, you know, some of that's valid, but that's all very like Freudian. And it just so happens that at the same time that Freud was around, there's this other guy named Adler. And Adler they're kind of like a contemporary, you know, and psychology as a new science was kind of growing up, and everybody's kind of coming up with ideas of how to understand human psychology. And Adler's kind of like, he kind of contradicts some of that Freudian psychology about like, you know, trauma response and stuff, but in a very like freeing way. Like if you basically the concept is that we do the things that we do in life because we want to do them. So I'll just kind of leave it there. I would say if you are the sort of person that is, you've gone through some trauma and you're in therapy and you're interested in alternate ways of thinking about how to process your trauma or how to process your difficult childhood or marriage or relationship, definitely a book to consider.
Do you have a quote from these books that you live by on a day-to-day basis? What are some of the powerful quotes that you've pulled from things that you've read that really resonate with you day in and day out?
Quotes are very situational to me, and they kind of pop into my head when they're relevant. It's one of the reasons why I read Rumi every day.
What's your mantra? What's your life mantra?
My life mantra.
Sorry to cut you off.
No, I don't know that I have a life mantra. I use some like typical mantras, like Eastern mantras, like I'll repeat Ram, which just means God. It's a form of God. Or like Om Mani Padme Hum, which means like the universe exists inside of the center of the lotus flower, which is this is kind of like non-dual idea of like everything is one. Again, very situational, and like when I meditate, if I feel that a mantra is necessary, which I used to, like when I started meditating, I would go into meditation and I would just trust that it's going to become apparent to me. So if I'm angry, I might like your consciousness is so freaking intelligent. Like your consciousness like created the universe and it's inside of you if you could just like let it come out. And so if you go into meditation and you need a mantra, you need a word of truth, like you're going to get there, and as soon as you open it up, it's going to be like, it's going to give you the mantra that you need, and then that can be your mantra for that meditation.
Let me ask you this question, because we had this question come up on Tea Time the other day, and I think it'd be a really good question to ask you. If everything in life comes to an end, why is it that the universe is endless?
If everything comes to an end...
If everything in life comes to an end, how is it that the universe is endless?
Well, I think that my first thought is, does everything come to an end? I think if you look at energy just kind of gets recycled and repurposed, and it evolves, and there's different combinations of energy. There's different combinations of atoms and stuff. But I think that's what's so interesting, is like our consciousness is eternal. It is infinite. It doesn't end. It's just our minds that end. And so when this life form dies, my brain, which contains all of the memories that are uniquely mine, will also die. But like my consciousness continues. And I think I've heard this before, like, the universe itself is sort of like reflective of consciousness. It is infinite, but it contains these finite things and experiences and stuff. And that's kind of like our human experiences. Like our soul is infinite, but we're experiencing reality through the lens of this like very finite, temporal human body.
I'm with you. Yeah. I'm with you. I'm following. I definitely wanted to ask you that question just because I was like, no.
That's an interesting one.
It is. That was from Mr. Methodonics.
Probably talk for an hour about that,
We really could. We're almost at the end of the show, by the way. I just, real quick, I wanted to talk about this mala here that you had gifted me. Elaborate on what this is, man. I've always been intrigued in the spirituality side of things. I've always had a respect for it. I am just not the best practicer, if I'm being 100% transparent with you. I am not a good practicer at all, and I don't know why that is. Maybe it's because I don't take a lot of time. Like I told you earlier, hard time being present, bro. I'm always like, all right, we're waking up today. We got to go do this, and this, and this. Let's go do it. Right. So the mala here, what does this represent? And I thank you for it. You put it over your head?
It will fit over your head, I promise. It's just like, you gotta,
Okay. Gotcha,
which I kind of like because I don't want it to be like too, hanging down real low.
Perfect. I see you have one on yourself.
Yeah, so malas, similar to rosaries, these have 108 beads, and they're used for reciting mantras or prayers or whatever. But
is there significance at 108?
Dude, there is, but like, don't ask me what it is.
Okay, all right.
And then there's 108, and then there's like this one at the end is the guru bead. But I'll tell you why I wear this, and I do use this to pray sometimes, or I'll really to recite mantra. But so you said I don't practice much, but you do practice some, because before you got onto this show, you took those breaths, those moments of silence. Mm-hmm. That's a practice, and that is a intentional act that is intended to bring you into the moment. And so one of the things that religion or spirituality is about is, how do we find more ways to do that? And so it's like, well, okay, so if I put this thing on my shelf and then every time I look at it, it reminds me like, oh, I can like be in this like ecstatic moment of experiencing music. Like if I wear this, it reminds me of like, hey, I'm trying to be spiritual. Like honestly, that's like truthfully, like you gotta like it. You do the things that you want to do, and so if you want to be spiritual, you do things to kind of tell yourself and the world that I'm trying to be spiritual. I'm trying to remind myself to be in the moment, trying to remind myself to, so I give these to a lot of people, and whether you wear it or you put it on a lamp or something, every time you see it or every time you wear it and put it on, when I put this on, it is an act. It's just like a breath. It's an act. And as I put it on, and just by me putting it on, whether I'm thinking about it or not, I'm putting on the intention of living a certain way, of being mindful, of being mystically and constantly aware of that divine presence that I'm living and breathing in all the time. So I hope it does that to you. Wherever it ends up, I hope that anytime you come into contact with it, it pulls you back into that moment.
Well, I thank you very much. I really do. I enjoy it. I can see the ideology behind it. I enjoy this shirt that you had gifted me. I'm a fan. I'm a fan of your merch, man. You're a phenomenal dude. We are at the point of the show where we're going to get off the air here. We're going to sign off. But before we get off the air, I always love to give my guests the floor. If there's anything that you want to, highlight, speak about, leave the people with, the floor is yours.
I appreciate it. Well, we didn't talk much about music, but I do have a new single coming out in March that I'm really excited about. And go follow me on Spotify, Instagram. I love to share that piece of the project with you. Websites withshams.com. I think Instagram is really the platform of choice for me. I like to interact with people that way. So, yeah.
My apologies about the music aspect of the show, but
dude, this is what's real. This is what I want to talk about. I like this.
Perfect, man. So I really enjoyed this conversation. I enjoyed you coming all the way out for episode 130 of the Middleman Podcast. You are a phenomenal spirit, phenomenal soul. I hope that we remain in contact. I will be looking forward to seeing those vlogs or seeing the blogs that come out, and just I think that will really help me get an appreciation and an understanding and a different perspective on life.
Yeah, man.
And that's what it's all about. So with that being said, everyone, I am the man in the middle, Kevin Martinez, signing out. Peace.